What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's Genesis Scottish Open. This is a very unique situation that we have on the tour right now because this used to be exclusively a DP World Tour event, the European Tour, and now it's co-sanctioned. So that creates a couple of situations where we have just enough data and just enough information to be dangerous. So we'll go through all that. We'll talk through the golf course. We'll talk through the players in the field because it's going to be an absolutely stacked one, as many golfers are going to use this as their practice for the Open Championship. So get your bodies acclimated to golf being played overseas. Don't wait until Thursday morning when you wake up to get your lineups in, to get your one and done in, to get your bets in, because this is going to start early, right? They're playing in Scotland. So think about the time difference, 5 hours from the East Coast, and it should be a lot of fun. Couple of weeks overseas. It's going to be awesome stuff. Let's jump into it right now. All right, here is the course key stats tool. RickRunGood.com. Everything you see is from my website, RickRunGood.com. It is a giant database and tools and visualizations for fantasy golf and betting on golf. I love it. I think you will too. So the part that I mentioned about knowing just enough to be dangerous. So the Scottish Open has been around forever, right? But exclusively a DP World Tour event, and now it is co-sanctioned with the PGA Tour. So there's actually two co-sanctioned events this week. You've got the Barbasol, and you've got the Genesis Scottish Open. The latter will be way more popular, right? 14 out of 15 top players in the world are playing in Scotland, and then they're going to go to the Open Championship. However, we have course history. We've got tournament history. Course history is 3 years. 2021, 2020, 2019, they played the Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club. It's what you're looking at right now. Min Woo Lee, the defending champion here. So we have course data, but we don't. Normally when I run this correlation model, it is the PGA Tour stats for every player in the field compared to each golf course. Well, we have most of that, right? We have 3 years, which is just a big enough sample size, but we don't have a ton of the full stats from all the guys who played in this event. So I will say, if you're going to look at this model, do not just blindly follow this. You should not be blindly following anything. That's probably a life lesson, not just a fantasy golf lesson, but don't blindly follow this. This is like 60% of the data that I would love to have to really analyze this, but I still think it's somewhat important. The good news is there's not really anything that stands out here. Strokes gained approach, by far the biggest metric. That's the one that stands out to me. We are going to rely heavily on approach play. There are only 3 other courses on this kind of hybrid schedule, PGA Tour and a couple of past European Tour events, that strokes gained approach is more important. So keep that in mind. We can look at the scorecard here. So it's goes out in 36, comes in 35. That's a par 71. So count them up. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 par 5s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 par 3s. So what does that leave us with? 9 par 4s. Now the 4s there's a handful of them that are fairly long, and the 5 par 3s is noteworthy here. So this is certainly something that we're probably going to take into account when we get to the key stat, or to running a model portion of this. But for now, we're going to just basically analyze the field. We're going to stick with kind of the more standard stats. We're going to heavily rely on approach play when we get to that version, when we get to the model building portion of this event. But otherwise, go out and find your birdie makers. Oh, and the other thing is, like, this field's going to be stacked, right? They always get a good field around here. I think last year was like 400. This year is going to blow it away. It's going to be one of the strongest fields that we've seen in golf this year, which makes complete sense. The other thing that I'll note, the Renaissance Club, not a link style golf course, right? So normally the idea would be these players go over, get acclimated to the time zone, play links style golf the week before the Open Championship, where they will be asked to play links style golf. That has historically been the idea. That's not really the case with the Renaissance Club. So again, we're not necessarily super heavy on the European guys who play link style golf much more frequently. I think there's going to be a lot of Americans that can contend. And also when I reveal this field to you, your brain is going to explode. It's unbelievable. And here it is on the cheat sheet. 4 golfers over $10,000. Scotty Scheffler is $11,200. Jon Rahm is $11,000. Justin Thomas is $10,600. Matt Fitzpatrick is $10,100. Well deserved, but always a little bit interesting to see. That might be the most expensive we've ever seen on Matt Fitzpatrick. I'll check in just a second. The only guy in the top 15 in the world who's not here is Rory McIlroy. He's obviously going to be at St. Andrews next week. But everyone else is here, which is creating a situation where, my goodness, there is a lot of value. Before I even get down there, like Victor Hovland is $8,800, right? Coming off, the last time we saw him was that fairly ugly missed cut at the U.S. Open. I can't remember the last time with Victor was 8,800. I'll look up some of these and probably email them out in my newsletter this week, kind of the, buying at an all-time high or buying at an all-time low. But I imagine there's going to be some pretty unique prices here. So let's look at this $10,000 range. Scotty Scheffler is, and I feel like I've said this for 5 months, he's just unbelievable, right? I mean, even when he doesn't have his best stuff, he finds a way to finish well. Let's look up the profile here for Scotty. When I look at his profile, I see a golfer who right here, from basically, Phoenix from his first win, but you could go back even a little bit further than that. So go to Phoenix to the Masters, was dominant and putted well. He is still dominant from tee to green, not putting well, and he still has 2 runner-up finishes, 2 top 15s, a top 20. I mean, look at this. So he is objectively not putting as well as he was earlier this year by about, 3 strokes a tournament. Is that right? Let me just do the math real quick. Okay, so this 6 event stretch, I cannot speak this morning. From Phoenix to the Masters, he was gaining basically a stroke per round with the putter. He is now a tiny, tiny negative, basically tour average over his last 6. And he is still piling up good finishes. Like, isn't that scary? So that 6 event stretch where he's objectively way worse with the putter. He's gone T15, missed cut, runner up, T18, runner up, T13. That's terrifying. That is terrifying. So I look at Scotty Scheffler and say, wow, the floor is there. And if he putts well, he's probably going to win. Like that is what it feels like. And a lot of these guys have played this event before. So Scotty Scheffler played at Renaissance Club last year, finished 12th. So Scotty might not be the guy you're looking for. We'll wait for ownership to figure itself out later in the week. We'll do the Wednesday live show, 3 p.m. Eastern time, but that is really, really scary stuff. Jon Rahm played here last year, finished 7th. Jon Rahm coming off what probably most would consider a pretty disappointing U.S. Open, right? To be really in the mix on the weekend and just kind of fade on Sunday and not make up much ground, ends up finishing 12th. We can do a deeper dive into his metrics. I imagine they're going to be fairly incredible. Let's just look real quick. From tee to green, he's been great. The putter's been really good. There's nothing not to like here. The short game is back. He's plugged the leaks. That's the one thing that we talked about going into the U.S. Open, which now feels like it's a long time ago. It's only been a couple of weeks. That stretch of golf where he was struggling with the short game, that's over. Readjust your expectations. Recalibrate your viewpoints on Jon Rahm. He's really, really close to being that dominant top-end player again. Justin Thomas was in the field for, I guess it was Travelers, or was it for John Deere? I can't remember, but he withdrew from, before the tournament started, before one of those, wanted to get some more rest. It had to be the Travelers, right? Coming off the U.S. Open. That's got to be right. Has 2 top 10s here. So when you start looking, if you start going through the Holy Grail, and you can fire this up for anybody in this field at the Renaissance Club, and you've got to add more filters here because you've got to go and add in the European Tour as well. So add in the European Tour, do the Renaissance Club. Now, you only want to look at the last 3 years, and that's all you're going to get out of this. But if you sort by strokes gained total of guys who've played this event twice, Lucas Herbert is number 1, 2.6 strokes gained. He's finished T4 in each of the last 2 years. Justin Thomas is next, 2.25 with a 9th place finish and an 8th place finish. Thomas Dietrich, Tommy Fleetwood. Wow, you can make an all Thomas lineup. Justin Thomas, Thomas Dietrich, Thomas Fleetwood. I assume his full name is Thomas. And maybe we can find a couple of other ones. Thorbjorn, that might be like the Austrian version of Thomas, or German. I don't know what Thorbjorn is. It's probably something Scandinavian. You can make an all Thomas team. Anyway, Justin Thomas has been the best player around here in multiple starts. And then Matt Fitzpatrick is 10-1. He's been a loyalist to this event. Finished runner-up last year, 42nd in 2020, 14th at Renaissance Club in 2019. He finished 14th in 2018, but that was not held at the Renaissance Club. So keep that in mind. Okay, so the way we've got to start splitting hairs between these guys. The way that I look at it, Scotty Scheffler is probably worth the extra couple hundred dollars. There is zero statistical evidence that he's going anywhere. Right? Even his worst start, a miscut to PGA Championship, was about as good of a miscut as you could get. So Scotty Scheffler, all the stats are there. The next guy that I'd be interested in is probably Justin Thomas. He's got again, we're splitting hairs. He's been twice as good as Jon Rahm on approach in the last 50 rounds. He's got 2 top 10 finishes here. Then I would probably go... Matt Fitzpatrick coming off the U.S. Open win, he's had some that's always a little bit worrisome. I would probably go Rahm, and then I would probably go Fitzpatrick. But again, it's very, very close. That's just my opinion. You can certainly do whatever you want, and I encourage you to do whatever you want. The $9,000 range becomes a lot more interesting because you've got guys like Xander Schauffele fresh off a victory in the 9K range. You've got Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa, Will Zalatoris, and Sam Burns, and Cam Smith, and Hideki Matsuyama. So we've got to figure this part out. None of these guys have played at the Renaissance Club more than once. The best finish last year for any of them, Xander Schauffele finished 10th. Let's look at how Xander pairs out in the power rankings here, and you'll see. So he's $9,900, but over the last 24 rounds, Xander Schauffele's the number one player in this field, and it's not even close. He's a half a stroke better than Will Zalatoris. He's 2/3 of a stroke better than Scotty Scheffler. And then Sam Burns is 4th. So actually, of all the guys in this field, 3 of the top players in the last 24 rounds are in the 9K range. Why does this matter? I believe that 24 rounds is kind of the best indicator of recent form. It is, 6 tournaments. So that is, for me, a big enough sample size to have actionable data, but it's not too long, right? When you start going to 50, that's like half a year for some of these guys. 100, it's like a full year for some of these guys. So 6 starts, especially at this point in the year where guys are playing a lot of golf, that might be a 2-month stretch, which I think is really actionable. Not to just cherry pick results, because I've said that before, but last week, who was the best player in the field over the last 24 rounds last week? It was JT Poston, wins the golf tournament. I think if you go back, and I'll do this in the offseason, go back and look at what the best metric is for lead-in form for every event. I have a feeling 24 rounds is going to be pretty predictive. I've dipped my toe into that water just a little bit, but I imagine that's going to be the result. So Xander Schauffele, even if you remove the win, which hurts him, right? Removing the win hurts him. He's gained 8, 6, 9, 11, 13 shots to the field over the course of his last 6 starts. One of them was the Zurich Classic, which you can argue whether that should be included or not. But let's throw out the win and the Zurich Classic. I'm going to throw out 2 wins. He goes 11 strokes gained, 9 strokes gained, 6, and 8. That's a great stretch, an unbelievably great stretch. He was just interviewed. This is all anecdote. He's playing the JP McManus Pro-Am here on Monday and Tuesday. And he said he's a little bit tired. He's trying to get acclimated to the time zone. And he was like 3 under par last time I checked. He was like leading. He was in the lead being tired. I don't know. I think there's just, I really am excited to see what the industry does with Xander, because if you told me he'd be 40% owned, I wouldn't be surprised. But he has not broken through 20% ownership since the match play. I don't know if people are sick of him, if he just plays fields that you get so many good golfers in, but boy, it's shaping up to be a really good spot for Xander. Out of the rest of this range, I kind of do like, Sam Burns coming off the miscut at the Travelers. Can we take a look at that? Not all miscuts are the same. And I want to look at the way he did this. I saw him miss a lot of putts, but that could be anecdotal. That was just me kind of tracking him as my one and done. So Travelers Championship. Remember, he only played 2 rounds. So gains a half a stroke off the tee, loses a quarter on approach, loses a shot and a half around the greens, and gains a stroke with the putter. Not the worst thing I've ever seen, right? Misses the cut by a shot or two. And he's normally a much better putter. He's normally much better around the greens. The approach play now hasn't been there for 6 rounds, which I guess is a little bit concerning, but might be an interesting buy low spot if Sam Burns comes in super, super under-owned. So we'll keep an eye on Burnsy. And then for me, Cam Smith is kind of the X factor here, right? So Cam Smith misses the cut at the U.S. Open. That's the last time that anybody got to use him. He also has not played at this event at all since 2018. He finished 42nd, and he has not played at the Renaissance Club. So when you start comparing other guys in the 9K range, you have guys who have top 10, top 25 finishes, maybe not so much interest in Cam Smith. However, if you look at the last 24 rounds of everyone in this field, in strokes gained approach, which we've already kind of determined is incredibly important every single week, and probably a hair more important this week, Cam Smith is number 1 in this field. In the field, last 24 rounds, gaining 1.32 strokes on approach. The ball striking numbers are great. We know he can get hot with the putter, and he hasn't even been putting all that well. He's basically been a tour average putter. So I think there is a little bit of juice to squeeze here out of Cam Smith. Look at this run. You know, the run from the Tour Championship last year into the swing season, into the early part of the spring, he was a putting machine. Has not putted all that well since. It's been good weeks, it's been bad weeks. There is a situation in which we get a 7 strokes gained on approach, 1 stroke gained off the tee, a 0 around the green, and he gains 3 with the putter. What would that be? 9, 7, 8, 9. That's like a top 10 finish or like a top 5 finish easily. And that's well within his range of outcomes. If we get, the guy's gained 9.5 strokes on approach twice in his last 7 starts. So he to me is kind of the X factor. We'll see what the ownership looks like later in the week, but he's the one I'm quite interested in. The $8,000 range is just as strong, and we can continue to roll on here. But what I want to do is I want to go back to the Holy Grail for a second, because I do think one of the things I love to do is really look at strength of field. There is just a difference when the best players in the world get together. There just is, and who ends up coming out on top in those situations. So I don't know what the strength of field of the Scottish Open is going to be yet, but let's say 600. 600 starts to get you into the major championships. It gets you into the playoff events. It gets you into WGCs, like things of that nature, elevated events, right? And I imagine with 14 of the top 15 players in the world, we're going to be up there. That's what's going to happen here. And I only want to look at the last couple of years. How many rounds if we go back to 2020? Okay, that's not bad. Decent number of rounds. So we're going to go back to 2020 here. John Rahm is number 1, no surprise. Will Zalatoris, who's 9,300, is number 2. Scotty Scheffler is number 3. Mito Pereira, who only has 12 rounds, is number 4. Guido Migliozzi also only has 12 rounds. He's number 6. We don't have a guy in the $8,000 range until you get to Victor at 8,800. He's like 21st in this field, something like that. The missed cut at the U.S. Open was his first missed cut since the 2021 Players. Now, he had to WD from the 2021 U.S. Open. Remember sand in the eye? Remember that situation? Yeah. So that was the last time he actually missed a cut, was the 2021 Players. And so he's only missed 2 cuts, and it was the last 2 U.S. Opens. Outside of that, he's been pretty darn stout at these stronger field events. And now you get an $8,800 Victor Hovland. Let's just go look the last time he was $8,800. It's probably been a while, right? 8,800. He was 8,000 at the 2021 Tour Championship, but that's a staggered start. That doesn't really count. Then he was, that's it. The 2020 BMW Championship. That's the last time we see him we've seen him be this cheap. So I don't know if I'll get there just yet, but that's someone I'm certainly keeping an eye on when you compare to the rest of this $8,000 range. And there's a lot of good guys here. Ryan Fox has been good on a worldwide stage, right? It's not going to necessarily show up here on the cheat sheet. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to dive into the golfer profiles here a bit, or go to the power rankings, because I've got all the guys, right? I've got DP World Tour results, live results, PGA Tour results, all that. Look at the stretch of golf that Ryan Fox is on. So he wins in February, and he has piled up top 25 since. Runner-up finish at the Irish Open last week. Third at the BMW International the week before. He did miss the cut at the US Open, but he missed it on the number at $6,700. Runner-up at the Dutch Open. Made the cut at the PGA, T2, T8, and the win. That's his last 8 results. Splendid. If you look at the power rankings, so 8, 16, 24, so 32, but he missed the cut. So last 30 rounds, I understand I'm cherry picking this for Ryan Fox, but last 30 rounds, let's see. Oh, I've got to include all these other rounds. Hold on a second. I've got to include my Euro rounds. I've got to include everything. There we go. I understand I've cherry picked this for Ryan Fox, but last 30 rounds, he's the best player in this field. Rick, that is also including much weaker Asian Tour events. Okay, fine. Let's view the weighted stuff. If we view this as weighted, he drops down 33rd. So maybe it's not as good of a value as I thought, but I do wonder if that will, like if you're just a casual playing this week, are you going to play Joaquin Niemann or Ryan Fox? Are you going to play Corey Connors or Ryan Fox? Are you going to play Tommy Fleetwood or Ryan Fox? I just don't think Ryan Fox is going to be all that popular. And in the two, I think he only has 8 rounds that are measured. Yeah. And he's been great on approach. He bombs it off the tee. I don't know. I'll give him one more crack here. The $8,000 range as a whole, I think is really fascinating, and I think is going to be likely where this slate is kind of won and lost, because the 9s and the 10s are so stacked. There's guys in the 7s that are fair, and there are at least some question marks about basically every single one of these guys. So every single guy except for Tommy Fleetwood and Max Homa in the $8,000 range is coming off a missed cut in their last start, at least their last PGA start. Ryan Fox, obviously, that's not true because he had a runner-up finish. But you see what I'm saying? If you're looking at a cheat sheet and you're looking at PGA Tour results, so you've got all these guys coming off missed cuts. Cam Young, who was the flavor of the spring as he should have been, has now gone 60th at the Memorial, missed cut the US Open. If he's just 5%, I'm back in, right? I mean, there's so many of these guys that I think the slate will be broken here from one of these guys, because they can all win it. They're all super high upside, talented golfers, but I don't know if the industry is going to necessarily treat them that way. If we look at this range just by itself and sort by strokes gained approach, Ryan Fox is number 1. That's and this is the last 50 rounds. I can go last 24, but also Ryan Fox only has 8 rounds. So Max Homa's number 2. Homa's ball striking has been phenomenal. Corey Connors is number 3. Let's see. Tommy Fleetwood is next. Sung J M. The only guy who's losing strokes on approach in the last 24 is Cam Young, but he's probably one of the top guys in tee to green. Yeah, he's middle of the pack in tee to green because he's been phenomenal off the tee. So you can mess around with this any way that you like, but these are guys that I think public sentiment is going to be quite down on, which is probably why I'm interested, and also probably interested for the Jock market as well, because you're also going to get a situation where if public sentiment is down, nobody's going to want to buy these guys. Cam Young's been one of the most profitable Jock market golfers that we have. Max Homa as well. They're both in that $8,000 range. And I think you're going to get a pretty good deal on them because I don't think anybody's running out to bid on them. This is stock market DFS. It's you buy, sell short shares of golfers, and there's an IPO phase. I think you're going to get a deal on a lot of these 8K guys. That's the way I at least view this. You can use the code Rick at Jock Market and get yourself up to $100 deposit match. Okay, $7,000 range. mentioned Lucas Herbert, who's got the back-to-back fourth place finishes at this event. I also believe he played in Ireland last week. Let's just confirm that. Am I making that up? No, I'm not. And he's coming off a top 10. He's probably going to be pretty popular. I think a lot of people, and he's been playing on the PGA Tour, so a lot of people know like who he is. I think he will be fairly popular. He's a bit reliant on the short game, like very, very reliant on the short game, which is terrifying. I like Lucas Herbert, but I imagine a scenario in which he checks in at like 19% ownership and I'm out, right? Like that would be what I would think would be bad chalk. If for whatever reason he comes in at 9%, I'm much more interested, but I could see a path to him being quite popular this week. I'm pretty big in on Mito Pereira. He's coming off of 2 missed cuts, but as we talk about all the time, not all missed cuts are equal. He has actually gained like over half a stroke combined in those 2 missed cuts. He gained 3/4 of a stroke and missed the cut at the U.S. Open on the number. Lost 0.8 strokes at the Travelers Championship. Missed the cut on the number. I don't care at all. Right, the weeks before that were awesome. He's in a little bit of an approach lull, which we have not. I mean, we've seen that before. That's not uncommon, right? He did that kind of in the fall portion of the schedule, and then he snapped out of it. I want to be on Mito when he snaps out of it, especially because I think it's easy to look at this stretch of golf and say, wow, he was playing well. He coughed up the PGA Championship and has missed 2 cuts in a row. I'm out. Like, no, I see that. I see that differently. And maybe I'm wrong, but I see that differently. Who else here? Christian Bezuidenhout. Yeah, I think we were correct in the fact that like he was the forgotten guy last week, and I think he was like $9,000 something, and it was like no one's gonna play him, and like these odds, bookmakers were giving him a lot of respect. Just something felt very fishy with Bezuidenhout last week, and it was like I think he's just going to play well. I worry that he's relying on the putter, which he continues to be, but he puts the ball in the cup. Like wouldn't mind going back to him at $7,500 because you're going to get guys that want to go to Varner, that want to go to Aaron Rai, who won this event 2 years ago, who want to go to more of the household names of Kuchar and McNeely and Woodland. I mean, McNeely played well last week as well. We're starting to find a little bit of trends here. I mean, Minwoo, who made the cut at the U.S. Open, played well, and then has won this event. He's our defending champion. Like people could go back to Minwoo. The $7,000 range is stacked. So let's start trying to split hairs a little bit here. Last 24 rounds on approach play. HV3, Keegan Bradley, Henrik Stenson, Mito Pereira, Luke List, and Brian Harman's tied. Those are your top 5. Strokes gained total. And again, this is going to include rounds from all over the world. Adrian Meronk, who just won last week, right? On the European Tour, is number 1. Keegan Bradley, number 2. Eduardo Molinari, number 3. Again, that's going to be a smaller sample size from all over the place. Mito Pereira, number 4. We're starting to sort this in a couple different ways. We're starting to see Mito's name pop up in a few of those. That's something to note. Fantasy points gained. If you just want to play a straight up fantasy point like angle on this, Justin Rose, number 1, Mito Pereira, number 2, Keegan Bradley, number 3. Are we starting to see the same names here? Because it feels like we are. So that's something that always, when you start filtering a bunch of different ways and you start to get the same guys, it tends to mean something. The bottom of the $7,000 range, because most of those guys were up near the top, I believe. Yeah, Keegan's 7,900. Mito is 7,700. Even Lucas Herbert is 7,600. I mentioned Maverick McNeely, who I've been a big fan of this year. I had an outright ticket on him last week. That did not come through. However, an 8th place finish is a good reason to be optimistic that he continues to play well. Who else at the bottom of the 7K range? Not super stoked. Patrick Rogers has played much better, right? He's got 3 straight top 30s. He's made 6 of his last 7 cuts. He only missed the cut at the Memorial. It's a tough event. No problem there. I wouldn't mind that. Playing well. The only place he's a liability right now is around the greens, which is okay. Anybody? I could play Minwoo. Let's look at Minwoo a little bit deeper here. Although I feel like he's missed a lot of cuts, or has he only missed cuts at majors? What's Minwoo been up to? He did play the Irish Open, made the cut there, 58th. US Open 27th. He's driving it well, struggling really with the approach play, which I guess is concerning. Maybe I won't get to Minwoo this week. Maybe I won't get to him. That's a pretty tough stat line right there. That's pretty tough. All right, maybe we'll take a pass on Minwoo. $6,000 range. Let's look at it. And remember, we've got kind of the co-sanctioned nature of this means we have a lot of guys that are playing. I don't want to say exclusively on the DP World Tour, but yeah, like exclusively. So we've got a lot of guys here. So the way that I would probably do this with this new field or new field composition is I'd probably look a lot at the power rankings. The power rankings let you get access to all the rounds of everybody, right? Which is good here. So let's just do this. Last 24 rounds of everyone in this field. Let's find the first 6K golfer. Like, let's just scroll down and find the first 6K golfer. It's Matthew NeSmith, $6,900. He's 32nd in strokes gained total. He's 26th. Oh, I'm in weighted too. Hold on. I guess that's fine. Weighted's fine because we got guys. Actually, I probably prefer that. So NeSmith 32nd. Strokes gained approach, he's 26th. He is a liability in the short game categories, but that's not horrible. Next would be Jason Scrivener, who's fairly well-rounded across the board. That was Oliver. I don't know if you saw him in the frame. Wyndham Clark, who is great off the tee and great around the green, struggles other places. And then Audrey Arnis, who has been, wow, look at this. We might not have a ton of rounds on this, but let's look him up. Arnis. Okay. Played the Irish Open. Missed the cut. The US Open, but gained strokes on approach. Made the cut at the PGA Championship. Played well in Europe. Had a stretch of golf where he had 4 straight top 10s earlier this year. This isn't bad. This isn't bad at all. I think I liked him at the US Open, and he just short gamed himself out of it, which is something he tends to do. So you've got to be a little bit worried that he chips and putts his way out of it. But I'm going to assume that lack of ability on and around the greens is not, especially around the greens, not nearly as important here as it is at Brookline at the Country Club, right? So maybe I'll give him one more go here. Steven Yeager got into this field, which is nice. He finished 30th at the John Deere last week. Just trying to see if anything else stands out here. Got a couple of guys with some really good finishes. Patty Harrington, who won the U.S. Senior Open a couple of weeks ago, has back-to-back top 20s at this event at the Renaissance Club, if you're willing to go that route. Just kind of scrolling through here. Okay, let's run a model. So I think the model is going to be fairly straightforward here. Let's stick with last 24. I want to just be smart about this. And I think we have to use the weighted numbers. The weighted numbers are, if I didn't explain it earlier, I've explained it a lot, but it's an opportunity to use strength of field and a variety of other things to say, hey, gaining a stroke putting or gaining a stroke to the field at the US Open is much more impressive than gaining a stroke to the field at the Barbasol or at the French Open or something like that. So that's what weighted strokes gain does. So we're going to use weighted strokes gain for this. We know approach play is going to be important. Let's just say 33. It's always important, and we think it's going to be more important here. Off the tee, 15, and then we'll go around the green, 10, putting, 10. That's 68 out of our 100 weights. So we've got 32 remaining. Well, there are 5 par 3s, which is pretty important and significant. So let's go 20 on par 3s. There are the 4 par 5s. So let's go. I've got 12 left. So let's go. No, hold on. Let's spread these out a little bit better. 15 on par 3s, 10 on par 5s, 7 on par 4s. So we've kind of done this in a way where we've covered all the strokes gain metrics and we've covered all the different types of hole scoring. This is kind of a weird one. I would never really do it like this, but I think it's fair for this week with the lack of information that we know. My number 1 golfer is, oh boy, Justin Thomas. Wow. JT number 1. Okay. Wow. Makes sense, right? He's phenomenal. And and very good on approach. So JT number 1, Will Zalatoris number 2, Xander Schauffele 3, Scotty Scheffler 4. I see a path in which I just lock button Scotty and Xander, which, by the way, you can now lock in up to 3 golfers on the custom model. I know guys were requesting that, so that's available now. Man, could I just lock button the Scheffler, Schauffele? Man, I probably could. Sung JM number 5, Sam Burns 6, Hideki 7. Didn't really talk about Hideki. Joaquin Neiman 8, Corey Connors 9, Cam Smith 10. Interesting. Okay. I could get behind that. It's not a huge, I mean, these are all great players, so this isn't a huge surprise. Keegan Bradley's the first guy in the 7s that show up. Who's the first guy in the 6s? Lucas Glover. He's 28th in my rankings. Anirban Lahiri's 33rd in my rankings. David Lipsky and Alex Smalley 35th and 36th. They're the first guys in the 6K. Interesting. Okay, so here's what I need to do. Figure out how much money I'm going to lose on Scotty and Xander. Then I want to do a little bit of a deeper dive on probably Corey Connors. And I really, really want to see what the ownership is going to be on Cam Smith. Cam Smith, I believe, is the big X factor here. The big X factor here. I'd really like to see what that ownership number is going to be. And that'll make a lot of decisions. So we'll cover ownership on the live show Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Rick Run Good YouTube channel. Also be live with Andy on Tuesday to talk through one and done and matchups and everything else that's going on. I will, and I'm sure we'll do some Barbasol stuff. I will put out a cheat sheet when the salaries come out. And I'll add in some that, like, you'll be able to use RickRunGood.com for that field as well. Just salaries aren't out yet. So when that comes out, I'll update everything. Otherwise, wishing you the best of luck this week. It's going to be fun. Get your coffee ready. Get your body clock set up. Looking forward to it. Firing off 3 a.m. tweets. You can tweet me at RickRunGood. You can leave a comment below. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you guys soon.